Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, this is where we follow the money, not the headlines, not the hype, the actual money, to show you where power is really moving in the global economy. Tonight's story is one that almost nobody is talking about correctly. And by the end of it, you will understand something about the next decade that will change how you think about your career, your investments, and the value of your own labor. Here is the number that started this investigation. $1 trillion. That is the combined backlog of unfilled orders sitting on the books of the world's 5 largest cloud infrastructure companies right now. Not projected revenue, not analyst estimates. Signed contracts, deposits paid, customers waiting in line for delivery. $1 trillion of committed spending, waiting to be converted into something. The question is, what are they buying? They are not buying servers. They are not buying software. They are not even buying artificial intelligence. Not directly. They are buying the right to mint. A new kind of currency. A currency that does not live in any bank, is not backed by any government, and is not printed on any paper, but that is rapidly becoming the most important medium of exchange in the global economy. This currency is called the AI token, and the companies that control its production are becoming, in every functional sense, the central banks of a new economic era. Tonight, I am going to show you how this new monetary system works, who controls it, why they are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to lock in their position, and what it means for every person who earns a living by thinking for a paycheck. By the end, you will understand why a graphics chip company is suggesting that employers pay their workers partly in computational currency, and why that suggestion is not as crazy as it sounds. Let us follow the money. Chapter 1. The lesson from the bookseller. Why infrastructure always wins. Before we talk about AI tokens, we need to talk about Jeff Bezos. Because what is happening right now in artificial intelligence is a near-perfect replay of something that happened 20 years ago in cloud computing. And understanding the first story is the key to understanding the second. In 2006, Amazon was an online bookstore. That was the label Wall Street gave it. That was how analysts categorized it. That was what investors thought they owned. And in that year, Bezos did something that confused almost everyone. He took the internal server infrastructure that Amazon had built to run its own retail operations, packaged it as a product, and started renting it to other companies. He called it Amazon Web Services, AWS. The reaction from Wall Street was bewilderment, verging on hostility. A bookseller renting servers, an e-commerce company becoming an IT utility. Analysts called it a distraction. Shareholders questioned the capital allocation. Competitors dismissed it as a side project. By 2015, AWS was generating nearly $8 billion in annual revenue. By 2020, it had crossed $46 billion. Today, AWS generates over $100 billion per year in revenue, and its operating profit exceeds that of Amazon's entire retail business combined. The side project became the main event. The infrastructure play became the most profitable business model in the history of technology. What did Bezos see that everyone else missed? He saw that every internet company needed servers, but almost none of them wanted to own and manage servers. He saw that the real power in a digital economy does not belong to the companies building applications on top of the infrastructure. It belongs to whoever controls the infrastructure itself. Selling books was manual labor with paper-thin margins. Renting computing power was collecting rent, predictable, scalable, and nearly impossible for customers to walk away from once they had moved their data and operations onto your platform. Remember this principle. In every technology era, the entity that controls the base layer of infrastructure captures the largest and most durable share of economic value. The applications change, the users change, the trends change, but the landlord keeps collecting rent. Hold that thought, because the exact same playbook is now being executed at a scale that dwarfs anything Bezos imagined. Chapter summary. Bezos proved that controlling digital infrastructure is more valuable than building applications on top of it. AWS became the most profitable business in tech history by renting computing power. This same playbook is now being replicated in artificial intelligence at 10,000 times the scale. Chapter 2. 10,000 years of pricing labor and the first disruption. To understand why AI tokens matter, you need to step back and think about what money actually is. Not money as an abstract financial concept, but money as a technology for measuring something very specific: human work. Roughly 10,000 years ago, in the river valleys of Mesopotamia, people began using small clay tokens to track economic transactions. 1 token for a day's labor, 3 tokens for a sheep, 7 tokens for a jar of oil. These were not coins. They were counting devices, physical objects that represented a specific quantity of human effort or a specific amount of goods produced by human effort. Over the following millennia, the form changed. Clay tokens became copper coins. Copper coins became silver and gold. Gold became paper banknotes. Paper became electronic digits on a bank's server, but the underlying function never changed. Every form of money in human history has ultimately served the same purpose: pricing human labor. You work for 8 hours. Your employer gives you a number that represents the value of those 8 hours. You exchange that number for food, shelter, and everything else you need to survive. 10,000 years. Every civilization, every currency, the same fundamental transaction. Now, for the first time in those 10,000 years, a new kind of worker has entered the labor market. This worker does not eat, does not sleep, does not take vacations, get sick, demand raises, or file complaints with human resources. And unlike a human worker, this worker can be copied infinitely. You cannot clone your best employee, but you can spin up 10,000 instances of an AI model simultaneously, each one performing cognitive work that would have required a human being last year. This new worker's name is artificial intelligence, and the currency that pays for its labor is the AI token. When you send a message to an AI chatbot, and it sends a response back, that exchange consumes computational resources, processing power, memory, electricity, cooling. The token is the unit of measurement for that consumption. It is, in the most literal sense, the wage of the machine. And just like human wages, tokens flow through an entire economy. They are produced, distributed, consumed, and accounted for. The only difference is that this economy is growing at a rate that no human labor market has ever approached. Chapter summary. For 10,000 years, all money has served one function: pricing human labor. AI tokens are the first currency designed to price non-human labor. This is not a technological novelty. It is the first fundamental disruption to the concept of money since the invention of currency itself. Chapter 3. The new central banks, who prints the money. Throughout history, the right to create currency has been the most jealously guarded power in any civilization. In the ancient world, Kings minted coins and executed anyone who counterfeited them. In the modern world, central banks hold a legal monopoly on money creation, and the entire architecture of the global financial system exists to enforce that monopoly. Currencies rise and fall, but the principle remains absolute. Whoever controls the mint controls the economy. In the AI token economy, the mint is not a government institution. It is a data center, and the entities that own the largest and most capable data centers are, by function if not by title, the central banks of the new economy. There are currently 4 of them: Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta. According to Morgan Stanley's latest analysis, Oracle is positioning itself to become the 5th within the next 2 years. Why these companies and not others? Because minting AI tokens requires 3 things that are extraordinarily difficult to acquire at scale. The first is GPUs, the specialized processors manufactured primarily by NVIDIA that perform the mathematical operations at the heart of AI computation. These are the printing presses of the token mint. The second is data centers, the massive physical facilities that house thousands of GPUs in climate environments with redundant power and connectivity. These are the mint buildings themselves. The third, and increasingly the most critical, is electricity. AI data centers consume staggering amounts of power. A single large-scale AI training facility can draw as much electricity as a small city. And those GPUs run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The moment the power stops, the mint stops. The lengths to which these companies are going to secure energy supplies tell you everything about how seriously they take this race. Microsoft has signed a contract to purchase the entire electrical output of the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania. Google is acquiring clean energy companies and signing multi-decade power purchase agreements. Amazon has gone further than anyone. It is building its own nuclear reactors. Technology companies are getting into the nuclear power business. That single fact should tell you how high the stakes are. Controlling energy means controlling the cost of minting tokens, and controlling the cost of minting tokens means controlling the price of AI labor for the entire global economy. Chapter Summary. AI token creation requires GPUs, data centers, and massive electricity supply. The companies that control all 3, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta, have become the de facto central banks of the new AI economy. Their investments in nuclear power signal that they understand the strategic importance of controlling the mint. Chapter 4. The supply chain of money, from sand to token. The AI token minting process has a clear supply chain, and understanding it reveals where the power and profit actually sit. At the top of the chain is NVIDIA. NVIDIA designs and sells the GPUs that are the essential component of every AI data center on Earth. In the token economy analogy, NVIDIA is the company that manufactures the printing presses. It does not print the currency itself, but no currency can be printed without its machines. This is why NVIDIA has become one of the most valuable companies in the world. It sells picks and shovels in the largest gold rush in history. In the middle of the chain are the cloud giants: Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and the emerging players. These companies buy GPUs from NVIDIA, install them in their data centers, connect them to massive power supplies, and operate the infrastructure that actually produces tokens. They are the mints. They do not care which specific currency you want to print. You want tokens from OpenAI's models. Run them on our infrastructure. You want tokens from Google's Gemini. Run them on our infrastructure. You want tokens from an open source model. Run them on our infrastructure. The cloud giants are currency agnostic. They collect rent, regardless of which model is running on their machines. At the bottom of the chain are the model companies and enterprise customers, the entities that actually consume tokens. OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, and dozens of others rent infrastructure from the cloud giants to train and serve their models. Businesses rent infrastructure to deploy AI for customer service, content generation, data analysis, and thousands of other applications. Every query, every generation, every computation consumes tokens, and every token consumed generates revenue for whoever owns the infrastructure. This structure is identical to the AWS model that Bezos built, except the product being rented is not generic computing power, but specialized AI computing power. And the revenue potential is vastly larger, because the addressable market, every cognitive task, currently performed by a human larger than the market for web hosting that AWS originally targeted. Here is an interesting detail that most people overlook. The same GPU running for the same amount of time can produce very different quantities of tokens, depending on which model is running on it. A large, computationally expensive model like a frontier AI system might produce 100 units of output per hour. A smaller, more efficiently architected model might produce 1,000 units from the same hardware in the same time. This means that model efficiency directly translates into economic competitiveness. If your model can produce 10 times more output per dollar of infrastructure cost, you can either undercut your competitors on price or achieve the same revenue at a fraction of the cost. Chapter summary. The token supply chain runs from NVIDIA at the top, through cloud giants in the middle, to model companies and users at the bottom. The cloud giants profit regardless of which model wins because they own the infrastructure. Model efficiency determines how many tokens each dollar of computing power produces, making it a critical competitive variable. Chapter 5. The trillion-dollar arms race and why the math still works. The amount of money being poured into AI infrastructure is genuinely difficult to comprehend. According to Goldman Sachs, cumulative AI capital expenditure by major technology companies between 2023 and 2026 will exceed $1.5 trillion. Morgan Stanley projects that between 2026 and 2028, an additional $2 trillion will be invested. Capital expenditure as a percentage of revenue for these companies has climbed to between 34 and 37%. When you include financing leases, the figure approaches 45% higher than the capital intensity of telecommunications companies during the dot-com bubble. These numbers sound alarming. They should, but before you conclude that this is a rational exuberance, consider the revenue side. Cloud infrastructure revenue from AI workloads is projected to grow from approximately $46 billion in 2025 to $291 billion by 2030. That is a six-fold increase in 5 years. However, there is a troubling trend in the unit economics. Before 2025, every dollar invested in AI infrastructure produced approximately 90 cents of incremental revenue within 4 years. By the 2025 to 2028 investment cycle, that figure has dropped to roughly 50 cents. Returns are declining even as investment is accelerating. Normally, this would be a red flag. So why are these companies not only continuing, but actually increasing their spending because they are not optimizing for short-term returns. They are optimizing for permanent position. Think back to Bezos in 2006. AWS was not profitable in its early years. Every analyst said he was wasting money. But by the time competitors recognized what AWS had built and tried to replicate it, they found that the seeds were already taken. Data centers take years to build. Power contracts take decades to negotiate. Fiber optic networks require physical trenching across continents. These are not software products that can be copied in a weekend. These are physical assets that create durable, nearly insurmountable competitive advantages. Google illustrated this long-term thinking perfectly in February 2026 when it issued a 100-year bond denominated in British pounds, raising £1 billion that will not mature until 2026. Investors oversubscribed the offering by nearly 10 times. A 100-year bond is not an investment in a product cycle. It is a bet on a civilizational trend. Google is telling the market, we believe that AI infrastructure will be as essential in a century as electricity infrastructure is today, and the market, by oversubscribing 10 to 1, is agreeing. Chapter summary. Technology companies are investing trillions in AI infrastructure with declining short-term returns. The strategy is not about immediate profit, but about securing permanent positions as infrastructure landlords, exactly as Bezos did with AWS. Google's 100-year bond signals that this is a civilizational bet, not a business cycle play. Chapter 6. The Independent Mint, CoreWeave and the NVIDIA play. Beyond the four major cloud giants, there is one more player that deserves attention: CoreWeave. This company does not build AI models. It does not create consumer applications. It does one thing: it rents GPU computing power. In the token economy framework, CoreWeave is an independent mint, a private institution that produces currency, but does not use it internally. It sells every token it mints to external customers. In March 2025, CoreWeave went public, raising $1.5 billion in its IPO. By the end of that year, its annual revenue had reached $5.1 billion, a growth trajectory that earned comparisons to the fastest scaling technology companies in history. But the most revealing signal about CoreWeave's strategic importance came from NVIDIA itself. In January 2026, NVIDIA invested $2 billion in CoreWeave stock, becoming its second largest shareholder. NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, is playing a sophisticated multi-level game. NVIDIA sells GPUs to the cloud giants. That is the pick and shovel business, selling tools to the miners. But by investing heavily in CoreWeave, NVIDIA is also opening its own mine. It is simultaneously the equipment manufacturer and a major stakeholder in one of the largest mining operations. This is not a conflict of interest. It is a strategy. NVIDIA profits when anyone buys GPUs, and it profits again when CoreWeave, running on those same GPUs, generates revenue from renting compute. According to plans filed with regulators, CoreWeave intends to build over 5 gigawatts of AI data center capacity by 2030. 5 gigawatts is enough electricity to power a mid-sized city, all of it dedicated to producing AI tokens. This confirms the pattern we have been tracking throughout this video. Whoever controls the physical infrastructure, the GPUs, the data centers, the power supply, becomes the permanent landlord of the AI economy. Chapter summary. CoreWeave is a pure-play AI infrastructure company that mints tokens without using them, selling all capacity to external customers. NVIDIA's $2 billion investment makes it both the equipment seller and a mine operator, profiting at every level of the token supply chain. Chapter 7. The Paradox. Why cheaper tokens mean more spending. There is a counterintuitive economic principle that explains why demand for AI tokens is growing faster than anyone predicted. It is called Jevons paradox, named after the 19th century British economist William Stanley Jevons, who noticed something strange about coal consumption in industrial England. As steam engine technology improved and engines became more fuel efficient, you would expect total coal consumption to decrease. Each engine used less coal per unit of work. Logically, total demand should fall, but Jevons found the opposite. As efficiency increased, total coal consumption skyrocketed. Why? Because cheaper energy per unit of work made entirely new applications economically viable. Tasks that were too expensive to power with inefficient engines suddenly became affordable. The market did not just continue using the same amount of coal more efficiently. It found 1,000 new uses for coal that had not existed before. Efficiency did not reduce consumption, it exploded it. AI tokens are following the exact same pattern. Over the past 3 years, the cost of AI inference, the process of using a trained model to generate outputs, has fallen by a factor of roughly 1,000 times cheaper, and usage has grown by far more than 1,000 times. Because dramatically lower costs have unlocked applications that were previously unthinkable. Tasks that no company would have paid a human to perform, because the economics did not justify it, are now being performed by AI at a fraction of a cent per token. Meta provides the most vivid example. Meta consumes almost all of the tokens it produces internally. It uses AI to optimize content recommendations across Facebook and Instagram, to target advertising with unprecedented precision, and to automate ad creation at scale. The automated advertising business alone is on track to generate nearly $60 billion in annual revenue, approaching 1/3 of Meta's total advertising income. This revenue did not exist before AI tokens made it economically viable. Meta did not replace human workers with AI. It created entirely new revenue streams that humans could never have generated at this scale and cost. ChatGPT now has over 800 million weekly active users. 60% of those users say they would refuse to give up their AI tools even if asked. And yet, enterprise AI adoption is still in single digits. Consumer adoption is still below 10% of the addressable market. The AI economy has not even finished its opening act, and already demand is outstripping supply by orders of magnitude. Chapter Summary. Jevons paradox, where greater efficiency increases rather than decreases total consumption, is playing out in AI tokens. 1,000-fold cost reduction has unleashed more than 1,000-fold increase in usage, creating entirely new economic activities. And adoption is still in single digits. Chapter 8. The Signal. When token budgets become paychecks. In March 2026, at NVIDIA's annual GTC conference, Jensen Huang made a suggestion that received far less attention than it deserved. He proposed that companies should begin compensating engineers not only with cash and stock options, but with AI compute budgets. Specifically, he suggested that an engineer's token allocation should equal roughly 50% of their base salary. A software engineer earning $200,000 per year would receive an additional $100,000 worth of AI computing credits, tokens they could use at their discretion to run models, deploy AI agents, automate workflows, and multiply their own productivity. Huang framed this as a recruiting tool. Some job candidates, he said, are already asking in interviews how much token budget the company provides. But the implications go far deeper than recruitment strategy. When token budgets appear on compensation packages, alongside cash and equity, something fundamental has changed. Tokens have crossed the line from technical resource to economic resource. They are no longer just a unit of measurement for computational work. They are a medium of exchange with real, dollar-denominated value, sitting on the same pay stub as a human being's salary. For 10,000 years, checks have contained exactly one thing: compensation for human labor. Now, for the first time, a paycheck contains two things: compensation for human labor and a budget for purchasing non-human labor. Two fundamentally different types of work, human and machine, are being valued on the same scale, in the same currency, on the same document. This is not a trivial accounting detail. This is the moment when the AI token economy stops being an abstract infrastructure story and becomes a personal one. Because once your employer starts giving you tokens alongside your salary, the implicit comparison becomes inescapable. How much work can you do with your human brain versus how much work can your token budget do through AI? And if the token budget produces more value per dollar than the human salary, what does that say about the future? Price of human cognitive labor. Chapter summary. NVIDIA's proposal to include token budgets in employee compensation marks the moment when AI tokens transition from technical metric to economic currency. For the first time, human labor and machine labor are being priced on the same paycheck, raising unavoidable questions about the future value of human work. Chapter 9. The middleman and the oldest business model in every gold rush. One final piece of the token economy deserves examination, because it reveals how economic value gets distributed, even when you do not own the infrastructure or build the models. A company called OpenRouter has built a business that does not train AI models and does not build applications. It aggregates hundreds of AI models behind a single unified interface and charges a 5% commission on every API call routed through its platform. By 2025, OpenRouter was processing over $100 million in annual transaction volume. Its founder, previously a co-founder of a major NFT marketplace, recognized that the same middleman logic that worked in crypto would work in AI. When the underlying technology is complex, the payment systems are fragmented, and users face risks of account restrictions or service disruptions, an intermediary that simplifies access can capture significant value. Andreessen Horowitz, the same firm that backed Facebook's and Coinspace, invest $40 million at a $500 million valuation. The lesson is the same one that every gold rush in history has taught. The miners get rich or go broke, but the people selling picks, building roads, and running hotels make money either way. In the AI token economy, NVIDIA sells the picks, the cloud giants build the roads, companies like OpenRouter run the hotels, and the most important quality that each of them shares is not technical brilliance. It is the ability to make themselves difficult to replace. NVIDIA's GPUs have no real substitute. AWS's platform creates lock-in through data gravity. OpenRouter's value is not its margins but its integration depth. Once developers have built their systems on its API, switching costs make them stay. This is the moat that matters in the token economy, not who has the best AI model. Models change every 6 months. not who has the lowest price. Prices are falling for everyone, but who has made themselves so embedded in the workflow that removing them would be more expensive than continuing to pay them. That is how Bezos built AWS into an inescapable platform. That is how every major infrastructure company in history has built durable power. Chapter Summary. Open Router and similar middlemen prove that you do not need to own infrastructure or build models to profit from the token economy. The oldest lesson in every gold rush applies: sell picks, build roads, run hotels. The durable advantage is not technology, but embeddedness, making yourself too integrated to remove. Hello, Sissing. Let me leave you with the question that has been building throughout this entire video. It is not a comfortable question, but it is the question that every person who earns a living through knowledge work needs to confront. 100 years ago, John D. Rockefeller built oil pipelines. 20 years ago, Jeff Bezos built server clusters. Today, 5 companies are building GPU data centers powered by nuclear reactors. The commodity flowing through the pipes has changed. Oil became data, became AI tokens. But the business model has not changed at all. Control the infrastructure, collect the rent, and let everyone else fight over the applications on top. That pattern will likely hold. The infrastructure players will capture the largest share of value. The model builders will rise and fall with each technology generation. The middlemen will skim their percentage. The users will pay their token bills, just as they pay their electricity bills today, as a basic cost of operating in the modern economy. But here is the part that keeps me up at night. When AI labor gets cheap enough, and it is getting cheaper by the day, there will come a moment when an employer looks at 2 workers sitting side by side. One is human, earning a monthly salary. The other is an AI, consuming a monthly token budget. They produce comparable work. The human costs 20,000. The AI costs 200. When that moment arrives, and it is arriving faster than most people realize, what exactly is your negotiating position? What do you bring to the table that a token budget cannot replicate? I do not have a neat answer to that question. Anyone who claims they do is selling something, but I believe that every person who works with their mind for a living owes it to themselves to think about it seriously. Not with panic, not with denial, with clear-eyed analysis of where value is moving, what skills will remain distinctly human, and how to position yourself on the right side of the most significant labor market. Disruption in 10,000 years. The token economy is not coming. It is here. The central banks are built. The currency is flowing. The pricing of non-human labor has begun. The only question left is where you stand when the new exchange rates are set. If this video changed how you think about AI, money, and the value of work, hit subscribe. This channel exists to help you see the forces that shape your economic life before they shape it for you. Share this with someone who thinks AI is just a chatbot, because it is not. It is a new monetary system being built in real time. And leave a comment if your employer offered you $100,000 in token budget instead of a raise. Would you take it? Through money we see human nature. Through power we see truth. I will see you in the next one.